It's time for Miller and Williams on Iowa Everywhere. Presented by Prairie Meadows Racetrack and Casino. This is Iowa Everywhere.
All right, what's up, friends? Welcome to Miller and Williams here on Iowa Everywhere. Lot going on in the world of sports. My name is Chris Williams, joined as always by Jon Miller. Here you are downloading and listening to this on Thursday, the 1st of December, and we thank our friends at Prairie Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Hey, we were talking to some of them about going out to the steakhouse out there. They do a lot of great stuff around the holidays, so consider that. They're phenomenal people out there at Prairie Meadows. Shout out to Cindy, who we work with, and we appreciate their sponsorship of Miller and Williams. Championships Saturday/Friday coming up in college football. More importantly, the World Cup. Miller, you live in the soccer capital of the United States of America.
Absolutely. It's palpable here. I'm looking out my window at a 100-acre cut soybean field, and I swear I see little kids out there kicking soccer balls. Yeah, it's a big deal here. Little Gracie was down at the Kansas City Power and Light District last Saturday with some college friends. Yeah, she was there the day that nobody scored an effing goal, which is I just can't hardly take soccer. But yeah, she was there. Nice juice down there, no goal. But yeah, man, I mean, it's the number of soccer fields here and soccer complexes for youth soccer. There's nothing like it in America. It's insane. I think USA Soccer has a practice facility here, the Sporting KC. I live 15 minutes from Sporting KC Stadium. Haven't been yet. Want to go, actually. It's beautiful. I mean, this is, for Kansas City, the size of market it is to be one of the World Cup sites in 2026. It tells you all you need to know.
So I think that soccer is fascinating. I'm almost done. I've been reading a book. It's called The Club. It's about the creation and growth of the English Premier League.
Oh my gosh.
It's basically it's about how the Premier League, it started with humble beginnings, and then it turned into more of like a media company where the whole point of it is to sell television rights. Right. And now here we are with college football. So there's a ton of crossover between it. But
I got a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, one of the things that stood out to me was just about how Americans, most of us don't really like soccer, but we like the idea of liking soccer. We like the British accents. Good. We like the kits. It makes us feel sophisticated when we can talk about, I'm an Arsenal fan. I'm a Chelsea fan. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a quick question, and I'll get on to some of those things. What do you do for fun? You're reading an English Premier League book? Yeah. I would say I would gouge my flipping eyes out. My wife, as you see, incredibly well-read, the most well-read person I've ever known in my life, and I know college professors. But she's asked me to read numerous books, and I've tried. I just can't really get into nonfiction. I am reading a nonfiction book right now.
Only thing I read.
It's called How to Change Your Mind. Highly recommend that book. Phenomenal book. It's also a show on Netflix. But yeah, dude, the thought of reading a book on English Premier League soccer, and I'm not trying to offend you. I just is Chris Williams maybe the most boring person I know?
Maybe, but the reason I bought it is because Greg Sankey has been quoted saying that when he got the SEC job, this book inspired him to transform the league.
Gotcha. So this is like show prep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. It's work. Yeah.
Maybe I need to read some novels, because all I do when I read is show prep, apparently, because that's the stuff I read about.
Yeah. How do you escape life?
Well, probably should do more of that, sir.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. You got to have an escape outlet. I got a few suggestions for you. All right. So we'll talk about that.
Go out to Joshua Tree and just eat gummies?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good start. My wife and I actually just booked another trip out there in late February. We've always wanted to We've always wanted to see the Eagles through our entire marriage.
Like the Birds?
No, the band.
Oh.
In 98, we got married.
Did the Eagles gravitate to Joshua Tree
Yeah,
in February?
Yeah. 98, we got married. The Eagles were still kind of on there. I don't know if it was Hell Freezes Over tour. That might have been a little 4 or 5 years after that. We would, let's go to the Eagles. We just never could. We couldn't afford it. We had kids, all these things. Well, now we can afford it. Now that we got things for the kids. So we're going to go see them in Palm Springs, the Coachella Valley, literally 15, 20 miles away from the spot that the Eagles, just prior to the release of their debut album, they drove out in the desert together. They took a bunch of peyote buttons. They lit a fire. They sat underneath the desert sky. They had a photographer with them that snapped a shot right at dusk off towards the west of the light blue sky. And that is the cover of their first album. And that is the place where they came up with the name for their band while they were just laying there high, looking up at the sky, and they saw an eagle. And that's how they came up with their band. So
really,
for us, I love circular narratives. The circular narrative writing device is one of my favorite storytelling devices, ending where you begin. And we feel that this is a kind of a circuitous thing for us and the Eagles. And I was born in 71. My wife was born in 75. We are children of the 70s, and the Eagles were literally the soundtrack to our childhoods, with our parents playing them all the time. So this is going to be a quasi-spiritual experience for us. 5th row, floor seats, win out. We're doing it.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
Good for you. Very cool.
So you gotta cut loose, Chris. You gotta unwind.
I mean, I do. I go to races. I don't really anymore. Honestly, John, my life is being a dad.
Yeah, I know, dude.
That's all I do.
I've been there. Read an article today. I saw it on Drudge Report. Clicked on it. Said,
Drudge Report?
That's where I go every day. Headlines. And so I'm just looking for headlines.
You're just looking to troll the right?
No, I'm not looking to troll anybody, dude. I'm not like some, sitting in my basement. What am I going to do to piss off the righties? But I'm not, I'm left of center socially, but I wouldn't consider myself as some flaming, liberal. Not that there's anything wrong with that, frankly. I'm like progressive, sure. But it said older people have less stress. I'm like, no shit.
Yeah.
Because, you don't have kids. And we love the kids, but damn, man.
It
can be stressful. All right, sorry. I totally drove that car off the road.
It's just funny because I'm sitting here, this redneck from rural Iowa, and I'm like locked into the World Cup, man. Like, I just love it. Like, it makes me feel like I'm not a redneck from rural Iowa.
Right. The truth of the
when
matter,
I watch Formula One, it's the same way.
Yeah. Truth of the matter is, you can take the kid out of redneck Iowa, but you can't take redneck Iowa out of the kid. Same with me. I mean, still hayseed enough to say, look who's in the big town, as John Mellencamp once sang. Soccer, I tuned into the game against Iran, and I don't want to end up on some kind of list. Read that today on Drudge too. The Iranians are seeking out dissidents globally to kill them, hiring like local drug dealers and things like that to go, kill for hire people that had escaped Iran and now are speaking out against Iran.
Got it. Yeah.
Is it Iran? I don't want to get in trouble. Anyway, I watched that game. It was interesting. I mean, I was, pulling for the old USA. Pulisic is the only name that I know. He and Alexi Lawless, those are the two. And Donovan, right? Donovan once upon a time.
Donovan.
Yeah.
Landon Donovan.
Landon.
Tim Howard.
The women's soccer team actually is I find that probably more enjoyable to watch, maybe because they're better. But to me, it's like, it's so damn frustrating. And I saw some tweets in my timeline last week. It's like, hey, America, welcome to feeling what being an Iowa football fan's like. And it's kind of, but it's even more frustrating. It's why hockey has been frustrating for me to get into in my life. And I'm really not, because there's, you run down, you make a rush towards the net, and it's just somebody pokes it away. Soccer, oh my gosh. I respect the hell out of these athletes. The things they can do with their feet and the ball blow my mind. But damn, is it frustrating, and I think sometimes pretty boring. Now, World Cup's just different because every single touch is important. The world but you won't find me tuning into a random Premier League game just because I'm interested in soccer ever. Well, I did once because a friend of mine in Chicago is from England and he's a fan. So I adopted them the first week of the season, but I haven't tuned in since.
I find myself to view these World Cup games. So I kind of got into Premier League a little bit during the pandemic just because I could bet on it. And
fucking degenerate.
Well, I got into it. But I wasn't like hanging on every kick. The World Cup's different because it's like do or die. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I'm watching this game like it's Game 7 of the World Series.
Because kind of is.
And you're just hanging on every like, oh, he cleared it. Oh, he's going to the corner. Like in it just.
Oh, it went out of bounds. Oh, there's another guy that fell down because
I had
got a hangnail.
I had an amazing experience in Portland last Saturday.
There's a lot of questions there because there's a lot of ways to have an amazing experience in Portland, from what I hear.
There were some Iowa State fans gathering to watch the football game at this local sports bar.
Right.
And we got there before the game, and there was an Argentinian. Is that right?
I was just really raised my eyebrows because I was impressed with your proper usage of the nomenclature.
There was an local Argentinian game watch during the Argentina game. And watching these folks, because that's the sport. Like that would be like if we had a World Cup of football and you got freaking Patrick Mahomes out there. Like that's
football is life.
And watching these people was it was a good cultural thing for me to see this. And I actually went up and talked to a couple of them. I said, "Hey, I was trying to be kind of it because I'm always trying to learn." I'm like, "Are you?"
That's
from
your rural
Argentina?
Iowa. That's your rural Iowa showing.
I asked, "Are you from Argentina?" And yeah, they are. And they have some social media where they get all the Argentinian folks from Portland and they go to this one bar and they watch all the World Cup games. And it was they're having their flags and all kinds of stuff. It was awesome. It was really cool.
So do you just go up and randomly talk to people generally in your life?
Depends.
You do, don't you? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, probably.
You do. Listen, we're Iowans. I do the same thing. Yeah. What's so funny and on point is I was, for some reason last night, I was on Google Maps. I was maybe going to send something to my parents. I needed their address and I couldn't find it. So I zoomed in onto their house on Google Maps. And then I just clicked the street view to see if I could see the number on the mailbox there, on Adams Street in Washington, Iowa. And lo and behold, the street view photo for my parents' house, my dad is out on the street talking to a neighbor, gesturing with his hands. And that's amazing. That's the shot when the Google guy was driving by. And I tweeted it out. I said, folks, this is not a happenstance. I think my dad's out there all the time waiting for people to walk by just to talk to them and talk politics with them. I guarantee politics were coming out of his mouth at that point in time. But yes, Dad has never ever met a stranger, so I think it's just rural. I think it's just a rural thing. I love this walk that we're getting to.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, I've been having internet problems, and it seems to have solidified now. So I can go back to my desk and not sit on my easy chair.
I thought you were maybe getting up to go to the restroom, and we were going to need to take I was going to need to see dog back on the screen.
I put Beth and those large assets on there too, just trying to get hassle-frazzled. If you watched two guys named Chris earlier this week. Okay, so World Cup, we all hate the Dutch. We all joined together in hating the Dutch here coming up this weekend. You had another tweet before we get into some transfer portal stuff, and you put out a tweet this week that I was just like, oh my God, Miller is my spirit animal. Mm-hmm. About how your obsession with KenPom, because I'm the same way. I find myself anytime, because I log into KenPom every day to see where Iowa State has moved up and down and how all the other games affected it and whatnot. And if I can get out of there in 30 minutes, I consider it a win. It's such I don't even know how I followed and watched college basketball before KenPom.com.
I am not strong in math, and yet I am fascinated and have always been fascinated by statistics. Maybe it came from being a kid growing up in Eastern Iowa. The Royals are my favorite team. We took the Iowa City Press Citizen. I believe it was an afternoon newspaper, and I'd get it and I would just pour over box scores. I'd recreate games in my mind just by looking at the box score. So I love sports statistics. There's nothing better than, KenPom or sports-reference.com. Those places are just amazing opportunities to go in and look. And the other day I was going along, I'm like, man, I wonder what Iowa was ranked last week in KenPom. I think I remember, but I just want to go check. And lo and behold, somehow, I don't know that I could find my way back there, but somehow I found the archive, the day-to-day archive, that you can go back on a specific day and see what those team statistics were for that specific day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just another layer of the onion that I'm going to continue to peel back. It is. I've been a subscriber to that site, I bet 7-8 years. And like I said in the tweet, every time I go there, I find something new. And it's not a fad. It is, I've got a friend of mine who has a gambling system, and a lot of it is based on the number of predicted possessions, and those type of pace of play, possession analytics numbers are important. It's what college coaching staffs do as part of their scouting report evaluations of upcoming opponents. They look at the numbers that KenPom has basically popularized. The guy is a cottage industry unto himself. I don't know, what does it cost per year? Like $19-20, something like that.
It's like $20 a year.
Yeah, I bet he has over 100,000 subscribers. I think that he does. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is confirmation bias, thinking that other people are like me. We all do that. We all think everybody thinks the same way we do, which is one of our big freaking problems in this country.
I'm pretty sure he does work for teams too.
Oh, I bet he does. Yeah, just puts. I mean, all he does at this point in time, since he's written the code, he just pushes the button and out it spits all the. I mean, it's brilliant. Love entrepreneurs like that, and it's such a fun tool.
Yeah, it's borderline obsession with me, and like I found myself. So I did the broadcast for Iowa State last week in Portland, and like when I'm prepping for games, I spend more time on there than I do anything. Like I find myself like, well, they're 6th in offensive rebounding percentage on KenPom, and I have no idea if the audience likes that, but that's the route like I kind of take my prep to it,
What part of the broadcast did you do?
Play-by-play.
On TV?
No, on radio.
On radio?
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. It's a blast. I love
that. How many times have you done that? You've done it before, right?
Yeah, I've done it a lot. I mean, for the men, I generally do every Thanksgiving tournament every year.
So when John's at football, you're covering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Iowa had a guy like that through the years, except you're just a lot better than him.
Have you even heard me, or are you just being nice? Maybe you hate it.
I want to say that I tuned in one time because I saw you were doing it and I've forgotten about it, but that may just be me covering my ass to not know that my really good friend is doing play-by-play for Iowa State, which is freaking amazing.
I will say that calling that North Carolina game the other night was one of the coolest
life highlight.
Moments. Yeah, because a lot of reasons. I mean, there's only 3 times that's ever happened in Iowa State history.
That's pretty cool, man. That's awesome. I'm hopefully you sat back and you soaked that in, because
I will. And then you just added the fact that a close friend is the coach, and like there's all these like tie-ins. It just was really special.
Did you cry?
I didn't cry, but it was kind of like I'll tell you what almost made me cry. So this is some good, and he won't care if I share this, but Caleb Grill, the young man, has 31 points in that game. Okay,
right. He went off.
And he had been leading up to that game not shooting very well, but he's an ace defender, and he's a huge leader on the team, so he plays a lot. He's a very important member of like the culture and all that stuff. Night before, they had beaten Villanova in overtime. Caleb was like 1 for 5. He hit a big 3 in overtime, like whatever. And I know for a fact because I was talking to him, but after the game, he was pretty discouraged because he pulled up his Twitter and just people were being jackasses. Pretty discouraged. And people can just be dicks, man. Like, you're
If you
drinking
tweet anything negative at a college student athlete
Yeah,
for their performance on the field or court, I'm sorry, you're going to have to put an E on this. You're a fuckstick.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, he was super happy about the win, obviously, but I think some stuff got to him that, man, he just wished wouldn't have.
Right.
And so I've known Caleb since he's a Kansas boy. I've known him since he was like a sophomore in high school. Otts was recruiting him at South Dakota State, like a lot of. Then he came to Iowa State with Prom, and there was all this really, really nice kid, nice family. And Caleb convinced him to delete Twitter that night. He does. And then he goes off and has 31 and hits 8 threes or whatever. And it was just like, I was so happy for him.
For sure, yeah.
You know, like he's such a great kid, and like any of us, you can have 100 people tell you, hey, great job, John, I really enjoy the podcast. And then like one person tells you how big of a piece of shit you are. When you're younger, I think you're kind of past the point of caring, but
I was going to go there.
I still take it to heart. Like when I shouldn't think that I'd have thicker skin by now, and I have much thicker skin than I did back then. But like God, like I was just really, really happy for him. I was proud of Otts because he's become this like really good coach. I think he's a top 20 coach in college basketball. Watching the way that the players respond to him and like what he's done, I really do. I know I'm biased, but then like you think of all the like shitty moments of where you take hell from, because fans will often take their frustration out on guys like us. We've talked about this before, where you just don't even want to do this anymore, you know, where you're just like, this sucks. What am I doing? I'm going to go sell energy, sell propane.
Oh, you want to do that too? It's a good path.
But then you're like, oh man, it's kind of all worth it when you sit here and you have a moment like this where you just, it was really, really, really cool to be able to call that game. It was one of the highlights of my life.
That's great. I'm glad that you're recounting it and soaking it in, because those mountaintop moments are few and far between. And yeah, as far as, you know, because people can say, I don't care what people say about me. And it took me a long time to get to that point. But I'm going to let you in on something, because probably nobody's listening. So it's just you and me. I sometimes will go to Cyclone Fanatic, maybe once a week, and I will search my name.
Is this like the $5 fee you pay on Twitter to see who is unfollowing you, and then you can block them?
It's in the same vein. It's in the same vein. I go there just to see if there's hate rolling, and when I encounter it, which is rare these days, I will admit.
Yeah, we love you.
I'm not encountering it enough. But when I encounter it in the old days, I'd fire back. I'd get all pissed. Now, it just fills me with this weird, inexplainable happiness, joy. I'm not trying to piss people off. I think you would vouch for me. I'm not out trolling anymore. Used to. But it's still, it just feels this. It feels the dark side into me. It reaches into the Sith and taps into it. And it just gives me a sense of completion. And I don't know what that is. I probably should see a therapist about it. So I don't search my name out probably there's some narcissism there. But I just like enjoy it. I enjoy it. I enjoy the grist. And you're right. If people are saying, hey, this Miller guy's a good dude, I appreciate that. But that doesn't hit me in the feels the way that the darkness does. And I soak it in, because I really, when I say I don't care, I clearly care enough to search, but I don't care to the point. It doesn't bug me one bit. And that's the bigger thing. I think you always care. Like I care about my hair, which is I'm going to get a haircut now, which is a joke. I'm losing
mine too, buddy.
I saw that. I'm thinking about Bosley. I'm thinking about going in and making an appointment and seeing what all that entails. Because I'm so vain with my hair.
I'm going to shave mine.
I know. I wish that I could.
Once it's over, it's over for me.
I know once I do it. But look, I'm gonna get like really real here. Look at that.
See, I mean, it's,
yeah, you're there. You're there. You're coming.
It's thinning. I'm not.
It's the baboon ass.
Yeah. Well.
So maybe I'm beyond help. Maybe I shouldn't care. I do care, but I'm not ready to go.
I need to stop doing this cancer thing that I do.
I thought about that. You should still continue to do the cancer thing, but maybe shave one of your kids' heads instead.
You know what I need to do? I'll get an Iowa State player and we'll do an NIL thing.
There you go. Perfect.
And then it'll be better for everybody because then they get to take pictures. Because frankly, I've done this for like 11 years now. Like it's not special anymore.
No. Oh, Chris is going to shave his head again. Great.
Yeah.
We can find another way to raise money.
Okay. All right.
Listen,
so
I might pay you to grow a ponytail.
Rat tail?
That would be a better charity thing, like a 2-year. Save the tail. Save the tail. Save the tail.
Now you're speaking my language.
Here we go.
I would totally grow a rat tail.
What's the price on this?
I don't know. We should let the listeners decide. See what we can come up with.
I started for $1,000. 2 years. If you don't cut the back of your hair for 2 years from this day, I will send $1,000 to a charity of your choice.
$1,000? Come on.
$1,000.
For 2 years?
2 years.
$1,000 is nothing.
Oh, I thought you were saying it was generous.
No.
I mean, listen.
We've raised like over 100,000 for St. Baldrick's over the years. Okay.
That over 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. $1,000 is 10% of an annual donation. Listen, at Chris, those of you listening to this, go on Twitter. I am John D. Miller, Jon, and he's Chris M. Williams. At both of us in a message and say if you think $1,000 Kickstarter is a decent way to start and what you would match. Here we go.
Does it have to be a rat tail? Like what? How?
Ponytail. You will not cut
party in the back.
The back of your hair. Straight party. And I'm talking bachelor ass party in Vegas. There's no trim. There's. I'll let you get
how hard it is, John. Like I get in a lot of doors because of my looks.
What?
Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, you're gonna have to learn how to pick the locks, son. $1,000. Son is such a pejorative in the wrong circles, but I like saying it.
Oh, I do this stupid thing when go and listen to me calling the North Carolina game. You can listen on the Varsity Network
I will.
app.
I actually will do that.
I would love to get your feedback because I know these guys so well that like I'm so informal with it that it probably. I would guess that like 70% of the people are like, oh, God, this guy's annoying. And then 30% of the people are like, oh, he's just like me. Because you said the Sun thing. And like, Caleb hit a shot the other night. And I'm like, yes, young man.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, listen. And what I'm about to say is not negative. I am not saying this being critical. John and Eric are two... I listen to a lot of radio calls every year. I get on my TuneIn app. I do. I love listening to sports.
Yeah.
John and Eric are in the homer tier of broadcasters. Most are, okay?
Yeah.
Most state-sponsored broadcasters are homers.
And that's what you expect when you tune into it.
Of course.
Yeah.
John and Eric, I would put even higher in the tier, all right? But that's great. I mean, Eric played there. He played 2 sports. I mean, he's broadcast 2 sports. John's been almost a lifer, the second half of his life and kids and family. He works. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I will add this, though. I was thinking about this the other day. Kirk Ferentz, we're closer to the end of the Kirk Ferentz era than the beginning. I think he's got a year or 2 left, tops. I'm actually looking forward to the day when Iowa's football coach is somebody that I do not know at all.
Yeah.
And I have no personal history with whatsoever.
Agree.
I've never met Fran McCaffrey. Never met him. I've interviewed him on my old radio show a few times, but I've never met him. I've never spoken to any of the players on the Iowa basketball team or the Iowa football team. Never met him, never spoken to him. And I like that because it just lets me be unfettered.
Well, I feel you. Like, I know Campbell pretty well, but I don't.
If you went off on Campbell on this podcast, he would take it personally.
Probably,
that's the thing I don't want.
Yeah, but Matt, like, this is the point I was getting ready to make, is it used to be a lot closer, and then the pandemic hit, and he's kind of got a Ferentz thing going on now where the doors that were once open are now closed. So it's much less of a deal to me than it would have been like 2 years ago even.
Right.
In fact, there was one time Matt used to listen to my radio show all the time. He would have it on they would have it on in the deal.
Whoa.
And, yeah. And Matt texted me one time after a loss, or he called me or whatever. He was like, man, you were way too easy on us. So he's kind of the type where, like, I don't know. It's less of a deal to me than it would have been 3-4 years ago.
I would say, but
the dynamics have changed.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that. One time in my old Jon Miller show days, I had the late Wolfgang on with a segment, and after the segment was over, I got an email from somebody. It says, "Hey, love Wolfgang. You never know who's listening in," and it was from Brian Ferentz, who was probably out in the hallway working his, coffee fetching job with Bill Belichick at the time. And that always kind of stuck with me. And it actually slowed my roll a little bit. I'm like, man, there's these guys over there listening to this. Part of my income is still, having access, breaking news, blah, blah, blah.
Brutal tightrope, no doubt.
It made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then in 2014, when I was basically, kind of being I'd moved away, wanted to still prove that I could bring the heat and not just, blah, blah, blah. I probably went too far the other way. I was unfair in my criticism. The core of the criticism, I don't think was unfair. But how I delivered it was. And it's like, I bet those people, Brian, Kirk, some other guys in there, they probably think that I'm like some kind of a traitor, that I'm like this disingenuous ass.
My whole thing is there's two things for me. One, always never make it personal. Two, be fair. And when I say fair, like any critique you would make on the air, like, would you say it to the guy's face?
Right.
Is what I try and I always try and do that. And then three, you probably don't remember this to me, but you gave me a really nice piece of advice when I was a really young sports writer. And I think it was at the end of the Dan McCarney era, when we all knew he was getting fired. And you told me when we were both at Scout at the time, and you told me to go into the press conference and always remember that you will be here in 3 years, they will not. To conduct yourself like, and that's kind of how I am. It's like my number one allegiance is to my listeners and to our readers and subscribers and stuff, because these coaches, man, they come and go. You just never know. Like, we're actually very fortunate here in Iowa. I mean, especially your institution. God, like McCaffrey, Bluter, and Ferentz. I mean, they've all been there forever.
Right. They have.
I mean, we got Finley, and Campbell's like the second most tenured coach, but he's on like year 7. Like, that's nothing compared to the other side of the state.
Right. Yeah. So you got to kind of be careful if that's the walk you want to choose. You know where that piece of advice I gave you came from? I shared that story a couple of months ago. It's what I told Steve Alford to his face when he was trying to strong arm me. I said, I'm going to be here doing what I do long after you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's words to live by, son.
Well, and that's what you just gotta. It's hard. I actually, I was very frustrated after the call-in show on Saturday night, and my internet's getting janky again, so I'm gonna move back. But I was pretty frustrated because it's like I've done bad call-in shows, man. Like they lose 70-7 to Baylor. And for some reason, the one the other night when they just got killed by TCU was brutal, and it's an impossible situation. Because all the fans wanted to talk to me about was which coaches are going to get fired and when. I'm on the Cyclone freaking radio network. I can't talk about that. And I don't know. Right? Like, I don't know. And even if I did, like, I can't say it on this particular deal.
Platform, yeah.
And I went in and was talking to a friend who's on the basketball staff, and I was just like, I can't win, guys. Like, it's impossible because either the fans call you a hack and you're in the bag and all this stuff, or then all the people that you have to work with behind the scenes to get good stuff for the fans hate you. Like, it is impossible. You
Why are you
cannot
still
win.
doing that? Why are you still doing it? This feels like a private conversation that we're making publicly. I wouldn't. I did sound off for a number of years, and that was on WHO. It was after the game. It was not affiliated with the Iowa football program or the University of Iowa. And I grew to hate doing that. I grew to absolutely hate doing sound off, hate calling shows. I don't know that I would never. I mean, I should say, if my life depended on it, my ability to provide for my family depended on me doing a show like that, I would do it, whatever it took. But since my life doesn't, I would not do that. And I can't imagine being handcuffed the way that you're handcuffed on a Cyclone produced show. That sounds like torture to me. Torture. Because you can't, hey, Jim, what's going on? Oh, good points there. Yeah. You can't even be you. You can't even really express what you're really feeling.
I will
would be
give
my
them.
guess.
I've never had a person at the network tell me like, "Oh, you crossed a line or you went overboard."
Probably because subconsciously you're not going to cross that line. You're not going to approach it.
They're
Listen,
pretty good.
I'm not ripping on you.
No,
I'm
know.
just saying it's an untenable situation.
I enjoy being with like John and Eric and those guys. Like
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see
we have a good boss, and and like I enjoy it for the most part. And I will say this, like, as frustrated as I was on Saturday, you want to know why I still do it? Because we did it during so many awful years where it was not fun at all, and now it's kind of fun. Like, me and Whitfer work really well together, and like it's I don't know.
Right.
We'll see. I'm surprised that these networks still have those shows.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, you shouldn't be. They're making money from it. It's basically advertising avails. But yeah, I mean, I guess Kirk Ferentz and Fran McCaffrey and them still have like a weekly show that they do.
Yeah.
Which I haven't tuned into one of those in 5 or 6 years, and even 5 or 6 years ago, I would only tune in when things were going on where there was like meaningful news that could get broken. Otherwise, I mean, back in the mid 90s when I moved to Kansas City, me and some friends would get together at one of my friends' apartment on the internet and listen to the Hayden Fry call-in show on the internet. And we'd sit there, be drinking some beers and loving life, et cetera, et cetera. So anyhow.
Yeah. Those shows used to be like, that was the way to get your information. Right. But now we can all, you can stream, it's just readily available content every day. All right, I got to get to work. This was good stuff. Let's do one next week, John, on like transfer portal and all that stuff. Is that good for you?
That sounds good for me, buddy.
I got a lot of moving parts with Iowa State to deal with today, and whatever we do on that is probably going to be dated. So
yep, that sounds good. I'm going to get my hair cut.
All right. Well, don't go too far. We don't need you to
can't go too far because there's no way back.
He's Jon Miller. I'm Chris Williams. Thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it.